Hi, I'm Eliza, and if you saw me walking down the street, you probably wouldn't notice me. I'm not the type of person who commands attention when I enter a room. I'm more like the person who quietly finds a corner and genuinely enjoys watching everyone else shine. Some people might call that boring, but I've always found peace in the background. There's something beautiful about observing life rather than always trying to be the center of it. 3 years ago, I married Michael. And honestly, those were the happiest years of my life. He's one of those rare people who sees beauty in quiet moments. While other couples were posting constant updates about their adventures, Michael and I were content with Saturday morning coffee in our pajamas, reading books together or taking long walks where we'd talk about everything and nothing. He never made me feel like I needed to be louder, brighter, or more exciting. With him, I felt perfectly enough just as I was. But then Lisa came into our lives more prominently. Michael's sister had always been around, of course, but after we got married, she seemed to insert herself into our world with increasing frequency. Lisa is everything I'm not: confident, outgoing, the type of person who lights up every room she enters. She has this infectious laugh that draws people to her like moths to a flame. At first, I genuinely admired her energy. I thought maybe having her around would help me come out of my shell a little. The thing about Lisa is that she has this way of making observations that sound like compliments, but leave you feeling smaller somehow. She'd visit us for dinner and say things like, "Oh, Eliza, you're so lucky you don't care about fashion. It must be so freeing to just throw on anything." Or she'd watch me cooking and comment, "I love how you're not worried about presentation. Food is food, right?" Each comment came with a bright smile and what seemed like genuine affection, but they left me questioning myself in ways I'd never done before. Family gatherings started feeling different too. Where I used to feel comfortable in my quiet observations, I began noticing how Lisa would naturally become the center of attention. She'd tell animated stories about her job, her travels, her latest adventures, while I found myself shrinking further into the background. The worst part wasn't her confidence. It was how I started seeing myself through what I imagined were other people's eyes. Was I really that boring? That unremarkable? Michael's family adored Lisa, and why wouldn't they? She remembered everyone's birthdays, brought thoughtful gifts, and had an opinion about everything. Meanwhile, I struggled to contribute to conversations that seemed to move at lightning speed. Lisa would catch my eye during these gatherings and give me encouraging smiles, sometimes even trying to pull me into conversations by saying, "Eliza's so quiet, but still waters run deep, right?" It was meant to be kind, but it only highlighted how different we were. Slowly, I started doubting the very things that had once brought me joy. My quiet nature began feeling like a flaw rather than a preference. My simple pleasures seemed inadequate compared to Lisa's vibrant lifestyle. And for the first time in my marriage, I wondered if Michael secretly wished he'd chosen someone more like his sister. The comments became more frequent after that. Lisa would drop by unannounced, which Michael loved because he missed his sister, but I started dreading the sound of her key in our door. Yes, we'd given her a spare key, something that seemed natural when we were newlyweds wanting to build family connections. Now it felt like an invasion waiting to happen. She'd walk into our cozy living room and immediately start rearranging things. "This lamp would look so much better over here, don't you think?" And "Eliza, honey, have you considered adding some color to these walls? All this beige is so safe." She'd say it while hugging me, so how could I object? But each suggestion felt like a small rejection of who I was, of the home Michael and I had lovingly created together. The career comments were the worst. Lisa worked in marketing for a big company, traveled constantly, and had stories about client dinners and corporate events. Meanwhile, I worked as a librarian, a job I absolutely loved. There's something magical about helping people find exactly the book they need, about the quiet sanctuary of knowledge I got to protect every day. But Lisa would introduce me to people as Michael's wife who works with books, always with this slightly pitying tone, as if my career was a cute hobby rather than a meaningful profession. Michael didn't see it at first. How could he? When Lisa made these comments, she'd do it when he was in the kitchen getting drinks, or when he'd stepped away to take a phone call. She had this incredible timing, like she instinctively knew when to strike. And honestly, I don't think it was entirely conscious on her part. Some people are just so used to being the sun that they don't realize when they're casting shadows on everyone else. I tried addressing it once, gently. "Lisa," I said after she'd made a comment about how I should put myself out there more, "I'm actually really happy with my quiet life. It's not that I'm hiding. This is just who I am." She looked genuinely surprised and gave me this patronizing smile. "Oh, sweetie, I know you think you're happy, but there's so much more life out there waiting for you. I'm just trying to help you see your potential." That phrase haunted me for weeks. "You think you're happy?" As if my contentment was some kind of delusion I needed to be rescued from. When my 28th birthday approached, I made a mistake. I mentioned wanting a small celebration, just Michael and me, maybe dinner at our favorite quiet restaurant. But Lisa overheard, and her eyes lit up with what I now recognize as opportunity. "Oh no, Eliza, you can't just hide away on your birthday. This is perfect timing. I'll help you plan something special. It's time you learned how to celebrate yourself properly." Before I knew it, my simple birthday wish had transformed into Lisa's project. She insisted on planning everything, saying she wanted to give me the gift of a real celebration. She booked a private room at an upscale restaurant I'd never heard of, created a guest list that included people I barely knew, but who were good for networking, and even suggested what I should wear. "Something with more personality, Eliza. This is your moment to shine." Michael was thrilled that his sister wanted to do something special for me. He kept saying how lucky I was to have Lisa looking out for me, how this would be good for me, and I wanted to be grateful. I really did. But watching my birthday turn into Lisa's vision of what my life should look like felt like watching someone else wear my skin. The worst part was that I started believing maybe she was right. Maybe I was too comfortable in my small world. Maybe I did need to be pushed into something bigger, brighter, more worthy of celebration. The night of my birthday party, I stood in front of our bedroom mirror wearing a dress Lisa had helped me pick out, bright red, fitted, nothing like anything in my wardrobe. I looked like I was wearing a costume of someone else's life. Michael came up behind me and wrapped his arms around my waist. "You look beautiful," he said, but I caught his confused expression in the mirror. He was trying to be supportive, but I could tell he was wondering why I looked so unlike myself. The restaurant Lisa had chosen was buzzing with energy, filled with people who seemed to know each other from professional circles I'd never moved in. Lisa had invited her co-workers, some of Michael's colleagues I'd met maybe twice, and a few of my library friends who looked as out of place as I felt. She'd transformed my birthday into her kind of party, complete with a networking atmosphere that made my skin crawl. I spent the first hour feeling like a stranger at my own celebration. Lisa flitted from group to group, making introductions and telling stories about her latest work projects. She kept pulling me into conversations, trying to spotlight me in ways that felt unnatural. "Everyone, this is the birthday girl. Eliza's finally learning how to step out of her shell." Each introduction made me feel smaller, like I was a project she was proudly displaying, rather than a person being celebrated. The moment that changed everything came when Lisa decided to make a speech. She clinked her glass and the room fell quiet, all eyes turning to her radiant smile. My stomach dropped because I knew, somehow, that whatever came next would hurt. "I want to say a few words about Eliza," she began, her voice carrying that confident tone I'd grown to dread. "When Michael first introduced us, I'll be honest, I was worried. Eliza was so quiet, so content to just blend into the background. I thought, how is my dynamic brother going to be happy with someone who's afraid to take up space in the world?" The room was completely silent now. I could feel Michael tense beside me, but Lisa continued, oblivious to the shift in energy. "But tonight proves that with a little encouragement, anyone can learn to shine. Look at Eliza now. Dressed up, surrounded by new people, finally putting herself out there instead of hiding behind books and quiet evenings. I'm so proud of how far she's come, even if it took some pushing." She raised her glass with a triumphant smile. "Sometimes we need someone to show us we're capable of more than we think we are. Here's to Eliza finally stepping into the spotlight she's been stealing from herself all these years." The applause was scattered and uncomfortable. I felt like I was drowning in plain sight, surrounded by people who were witnessing my complete humiliation disguised as a celebration. The words "afraid to take up space" and "hiding behind books" echoed in my head. But it was that final phrase that broke something inside me, stealing the spotlight from herself. As if my quiet nature was some kind of theft I was committing against the world. I looked around the room and saw pity in some faces, confusion in others. My library friends looked angry on my behalf, while Lisa's crowd seemed to be evaluating whether this transformation project had been successful. But the face that mattered most was Michael's, and what I saw there changed everything. My husband wasn't applauding. He wasn't smiling. He was staring at his sister with an expression I'd never seen before, a mixture of horror, anger, and protective fury that made him look like a completely different person. The silence stretched on until it became unbearable, and then Michael stood up. "Lisa," he said, his voice quiet but carrying clearly across the room. "Can I have a word with you?" Now. But Lisa, still basking in what she thought was her successful intervention, laughed and waved him off. "Oh, don't be shy, Michael. I know you're proud of her too. Tell everyone how much happier Eliza is now that she's—" "Stop!" The word cut through her sentence like a blade. Michael's voice wasn't loud, but it had a finality that made everyone freeze. "Just stop talking. What happened next will be burned into my memory forever." Michael looked around the room at all these people who had just witnessed his sister tear me apart under the guise of celebration, and his voice became stronger, clearer. "I need everyone to understand something," he said, still standing, his hand finding mine and holding it tight. "My wife didn't need to be fixed, improved, or pushed into anyone else's version of who she should be. Eliza is the kindest person I know. She chooses quiet because she finds beauty there, not because she's afraid. She works with books because she believes in the power of stories and knowledge, not because she's hiding from the world." Lisa's confident smile was finally faltering. "Michael, I was just trying to help." "Help?" His laugh was bitter. "You've spent 2 years making my wife feel like she wasn't enough. You've criticized her clothes, her job, her personality, her choices. You've made her doubt herself in ways she never did before she met you." His voice cracked slightly. "And I didn't see it. I didn't protect her from it. That's on me." The room was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. Michael turned to face me, and his eyes were filled with tears I'd never seen before. "Eliza, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I let this happen. I thought Lisa was being encouraging, but she was tearing down everything I love about you. Your quiet strength, your gentle way of seeing the world, your contentment with simple joys. These aren't flaws to be fixed. They're gifts. They're why I fell in love with you." I started crying then, but for the first time in months they weren't tears of shame or self-doubt. They were tears of relief, of feeling seen and valued for who I actually was rather than who someone thought I should become. Lisa tried to recover, insisting she'd only wanted to help, that she loved me and thought I had so much potential. But Michael wasn't having it. He told her that love doesn't come with conditions, that help doesn't involve tearing someone down to build them back up in your own image. He asked her to leave, and for the first time since I'd known her, Lisa was speechless. The party ended awkwardly, but my real friends, the librarians and quiet souls who understood me, stayed to help clean up. They told me they'd been furious during Lisa's speech, that they'd wanted to say something but hadn't known if it was their place. We talked until late that night about how sometimes the people who claim to want the best for us are really just trying to make us more like them. In the weeks that followed, Michael and I had the deepest conversations of our marriage. He admitted he'd been so focused on keeping peace between his sister and his wife that he'd missed how much damage was being done. We talked about boundaries, about what it means to truly support someone, about the difference between encouraging growth and demanding change. Lisa and I eventually had our own conversation, though it took months. She wasn't entirely ready to admit she'd been wrong, but she did acknowledge that her way of showing love had hurt me. We're still working on rebuilding our relationship, but now it's on terms that respect who I actually am, rather than who she thinks I should be. Looking back now, I realize that birthday disaster was actually a gift, though not the kind Lisa intended to give me. It forced all of us to confront some hard truths about love, acceptance, and the difference between supporting someone and trying to remake them. I learned that contentment isn't complacency, that choosing quiet doesn't mean you're hiding, and that sometimes the people who claim to want to help you shine are really just trying to dim your actual light so they can replace it with their own. Most importantly, I learned that the right person will love you not despite your gentle nature, but because of it. Michael learned that staying neutral isn't always kind, that sometimes love requires taking sides, and that protecting the people you care about means paying attention to the subtle ways they might be getting hurt. He learned that his sister's intentions didn't excuse the impact of her actions. And maybe Lisa learned something too, though I'm still not entirely sure what. I hope she learned that everyone's path to happiness looks different, that her way isn't the only way, and that true confidence doesn't require making other people feel small. If you're listening to this and you recognize yourself in my story, whether you're the person being pushed to change or the person doing the pushing, I want you to know that authentic relationships don't require anyone to become someone else. Real love celebrates who you are, not who you could become, if you just tried harder to be different. The right people will see your quiet as peace, not problems. They'll see your contentment as wisdom, not weakness. And they'll stand up for you when someone tries to convince you that you're not enough exactly as you are. If this story resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more real-life stories about finding your voice and standing up for what's right. And remember, you don't need to steal the spotlight from yourself. Sometimes the most beautiful light is the gentle, steady glow of someone who knows exactly who they are and isn't afraid to be it. Thank you for listening to my story. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other.